All right, then we're live. Have Vindicator here with me, who has his own channel. So if you want to check him out, I put all the links to him. If you want to check out his channel, I certainly watch his videos. So this is kind of off the cuff. Like we're just gonna talk about things that think were interesting and yeah, I kind of want to start off which we were just talking about, the YouTube shoutouts, which you really used to like.
Yeah, I think it's something that needs to be brought back because, like we are just discussing, with the demise of the video response, a lot of smaller channels don't really get the coverage they deserve now, and they really have to either produce a video that goes viral or hope that a bigger YouTuber notices them and gives them a shout out. And there are a lot of people out there that do make really, really good content, but just don't get the viewership that they really deserve. And then you have the opposite end of the scale. You get a lot of people that have a lot of subscribers that don't really deserve it because they do nothing with the platform that they've actually got. It's just vapid bullshit that they spout. So yeah, that needs to come back. And like I said, I'm currently working on a shout out video that I'm going to be shouting out a few people and smaller channels, people who might not be noticed as much.
Yeah, I try to. I'm not really doing the exact same thing. I try to get people on my streams and like do it that way, so that they can kind of get into the person and check their channel or something like that similar out, because I like to do it that way, because if everyone did it the same way, it would kind of uh kind of get boring if everyone did it the same way. Yeah, so you have a good point about that, which kind of leads us to the. Yeah, we did a whole stream on this, but I kind of wanted to. I wanted to have you on the stream, but you had some internet connection issues, so
Yeah.
you weren't able to come, which was the candid thing, which kind of. It is about the big YouTubers, and we also talked like also the guest videos, like the issue there, instead of like talking about why you like things, about these YouTubers, which now also with the candid thing, where you just let your audience into an app which you have done no research on, and then it comes and bites you back in the ass. And I don't know if you watched it. I think I linked it to. Might not have. But the biggest thing was with Armored Skeptic, who made a 15-minute video on basically shitting on his audience for criticizing Candid. And then you had Amazing Atheist and Monday Matt, who freaked out on Twitter. Um, I mean, the so-called skeptics in this in this community weren't really skeptical towards this app, and according to Computing Forever, they got like $2,000 for a video, which kind of variated on their audience, but he has like over 100,000 subscribers, so you can take what you will with that. With people like Armored Skeptic, Amazing Atheist, Shuon had Monday Matt, etc., etc.
Well,
Um,
I think that when you have channels that operate their channel as a business, you have to be even more skeptical of them because obviously they have their own interests at heart. They might not care so much about the actual ethical thing that they're talking about because they care about the money. And I don't want to talk about the Amazing Atheist as much because I'll admit I'm not a massive fan of the guy, and it's mainly because he is like that. He does treat his channel like a business, and the things that he says about things. I mean, I watched Harmful Opinions video on this, and I saw the DMs that Amazing Atheist sent him, and they were like some kid on Xbox Live
Yeah,
in live chat. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And it's like you're calling yourself a rational, skeptical person, and yet you're telling somebody to go kill themselves, faggot. You know,
yeah. I mean, he did the same thing, almost the same thing with Naked Ape with the whole atheism is unstoppable thing. I don't know if you saw that.
yeah. I mean, this is what we discussed this the other day when I said the people when they're in front of the camera are completely different people to when they're off the camera. Sometimes what you're seeing is just a persona of that person, not the real person themselves. And you've got to be wary. You've got to be skeptical of everything they say, and especially when they're promoting things, even more so because that it's not like they're making a video against radical feminists or social justice warriors with evidence and stuff like that. They're promoting a product, and they're getting paid to promote a product, and they're two totally different things. And you can't take everything they say as truthful when they're making money from it.
Yeah, Amazing Atheist has been really bad in the past because he's been e-begging for a new computer and all that. That's sort of shit. Which he wanted like a few $1,000s to upgrade his PC and all that kind of crap. So, um,
I mean,
I'm not really the biggest. Lately, I've not been the biggest fan of Amazing Atheist. If I'm being completely honest here.
I think I stopped watching the guy a few years ago. I think it was 2010. I stopped watching him, and it was because of that. I watched. Amazing Atheist was one of the first people I subscribed to, along with Thunderfoot, and I've unsubscribed from both of those people now because I don't trust what they're saying anymore, because they think that they're always right. And about the Brexit thing with Thunderfoot, I made a few videos correcting him on stupid things he was saying. He was actually agreeing with social justice warriors and their misinformation that they were saying about Brexit. And everybody in his subscriber base was more or less telling him that you're not looking at the facts, you're not looking at the evidence, because if you did, you wouldn't be making the videos that you're making. And this is my point. When they have an agenda, when it's their beliefs that are under threat or their funding that's under threat, they have a bias, and you have to really do the research into what they're saying. And if they don't provide sources, ask them for some. And if they say, why should I provide sources, then that's when you hit the unsubscribe button and you don't listen to them anymore, because they're not the people they claim to be.
Yeah, yeah. All with the stuff with atheism is unstoppable. Then with Naked Ape, where he ended his video saying, "I'm amazing, TJ Kirk. I'm an amazing atheist. Who the fuck are you?" Like the condescension and the narcissism is fucking real. And just now, not admitting when he's wrong uh, with Candid, and he goes on to defend it just because he's getting money. It seems like his principle disappears when there's money involved.
Yeah. And we were talking earlier about why I was becoming disillusioned with YouTube and stuff. I think the catalyst for that was when AIU was doing his doxing, and it was exposed that he was actually doxing people. And the people who claimed to be for free speech and who spoke out against social justice warriors and radical feminist doxing people were incredibly silent. In fact, it was crickets from certain individuals. And they knew what was going on. They knew the facts. They'd seen what was happening, but they refused to call him out on his unethical behavior because they were friends with him. And I think that at that point, I just thought, what is the fucking point? Because if we're trying to create this environment on YouTube where it's a playing field of free ideas and free expression, then we have to hold ourselves to those same principles that we would hold anybody else to. And if we're not, then what is the point in trying to create this sort of thing?
Yeah, and for once, the social justice warriors are actually correct about at least these people. Uh, and I don't really give a crap who if it's people in the so-called skeptic community. and I see bullshit, I'm gonna call it out. I see Nekoman123 asking opinions on Black Pigeon Speaks.
You know what? I haven't really heard anything about that guy. I've not even watched any of his content. I've heard people speak about him, but I've not watched any of his videos, so I can't really comment on that guy. But I will check him out and see what he's about and stuff.
If I remember correctly, I was subscribed to him, but I think if it's the person I'm talking or I'm thinking of, he is very anti feminist, but he also made an insane video saying that women couldn't women being rulers or something like that just led to uh, bad things or some shit like that, and making being very, I would actually say that video was being very sexist towards women, where he said they were basically not equipped to be leaders of any sort because it would only lead to ruin of a society, or some shit like that. I think it was him at least, but that's my experience with him. But I mean, and the rest of his videos could be awesome, but that video was just insane.
See, I'm not going to disagree with. I'm not going to like say I'm not going to watch somebody just because they make a video that I don't disagree with. I'll keep watching and listening to them because even though they've made one video where they might be wrong, it doesn't mean they're going to be wrong on other um, subjects. And that's what social justice warriors and radical feminists do. The minute they see somebody that has wrong think or anything like that, they're automatically dismissed. Anything they make from that point is wrong, and it's that absolutist authoritarian mentality that they've got with that sort of thing. So I try to avoid that. I try to listen to everybody. It's like when people condemn. I mean, I'm not a fan of Donald Trump, but the guy does say things occasionally that are the truth, and you can't just dismiss what he's saying.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying
Yeah, I'm not saying you are. I'm just trying to get across how I believe in things and
yeah.
how I deal with
I
people.
mean, I'm subscribed to a lot of channels. I mean, I am subscribed to Amazing Atheist, even though I really don't like the guy. I want to hear what people have to say. So I'm
I'm just saying though, there are people within the skeptical community
yeah,
that do that
of course.
also. That also do that. The minute you speak out against somebody who they like, you're the enemy. And this is what I talked about in one of my videos when I was talking about the horseshoe effect. That even though they're ideologically opposed to each other, they still display the same characteristics when they protest.
Yeah, he Necroman said his videos are bitter pills to swallow, but there is a lot of truth and research he puts into his videos. Yeah, that might be true. And Trump 2016 hashtag daddy. uh, um, I kind of want to leave the candidate thing. Is there anything you kind of want to say more on that topic? Because I kind of said all I wanted to say in last stream. I think it's also quite ironic as someone like Monday Matt, who was kind of the catalyst of Gamergate, discovering unethical behavior and stuff like that, and now he's the one who is taking money and being unethical. The hypocrisy is astounding because now he's become big and lost all his principles. I just
Well, that's the danger. That's the danger in all of this because people who get power tend to let it go to their head, and these big YouTubers do have a lot of influence over people, as we've seen. And sometimes that does go to their head. I think it's gone to Thunderfoot's head a little bit, and I used to defend him virulently in his videos against feminists because he did produce good content and researched his videos. But it seems lately that's kind of slipped a little bit with the subjects he's talked about, especially on the Brexit issue. And the video title of one of his videos was "I don't debate my enemies, I bury them." It was very egotistical, and it's not a title I would have expected from Thunderfoot. And it's like, Jesus Christ, tone it down a bit.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's a little bit hyperbolic to be say the least.
yeah.
If I would have made a similar title, I would say, I uh, what would it be? I mean, I discredit them with facts or something like that. That would be my slogan, so to speak.
Yeah, and it was all to do with this guy. Did you ever watch that? You must have done because we've talked about it. The reasonable questions for anti-social
Yeah.
justice warriors, and a guy called, and this is true. This is his real name because I spoke to the guy. Um, a professor called Professor Moriarty
No,
actually,
Philip Moriarty, I think.
yeah, wanted to debate Thunderfoot, and fair enough. That's great. Somebody wants a dialogue, and Thunderfoot was kind of dismissing this guy as saying, "Well, he sent me email after email wanting to debate me." And I'm not saying that Thunderfoot doesn't have a choice, to debate this guy. Of course, he has a choice if he wants to debate somebody or not. But if he's on a channel that's advocating for free speech and for discourse and conversation, then surely he should take up the opposition on their offer when they offer it. And I think it would have been interesting to see these two people actually have a debate and see what they've got to say about the issues. But it seems Thunderfoot just wanted to just shut the guy down and not have a conversation with him.
Yeah, because I actually watched. I haven't finished watching his video. I have it in one of my tabs, because he has a 30 something minute video on the so-called responses to this video, reasonable question, and I think he's answering questions towards him, and I made a comment because he was being a little bit disingenuous by using an example of a kid being bullied as saying mean words on the internet are really really bad.
Yeah,
Uh,
I saw that, and I was actually going to do a response to it because I thought, well, there are cases where social justice warriors have done that sort of thing as well, and
Yeah, and I was making the point saying, well, you're or not you, but there are feminists and social justice warriors that have gotten people fired for dick jokes, like the people on at that conference who that woman took a picture of. Those two people got fired for just making a dick joke, and there are other instances, but that's the most prevalent example of these people who are trying to get people fired, and they're the ones using sexist, racist, transphobe, whatever ist or phobia you can use against someone. I've been personally called a terrorist on by these and all other kinds of things during the last 2 years. So saying that. Uh, mean words is affecting people. I mean, have they taken a look at in the mirror? I mean, calling they're using the same kind of language and expect that when they get something thrown their way, it suddenly matters.
well, the thing that pricked my attention towards the guy was when he was talking about anonymity and people hiding behind avatars and pseudonames and that sort of thing. And you brought up the point perfectly. People's livelihoods are on the line. We saw the case in Canada where the guy only disagreed with feminists and he was arrested and was basically being threatened with jail because he threatened, but well, he didn't threaten them. He just argued with feminists on the internet, and he lost his internet privileges up until the actual trial. And we talk about due process and innocent until proven guilty. That wasn't the case here. These feminists actually got the authorities to treat this guy like he was a criminal before he'd ever even been to trial. And and this guy's saying, talking about anonymity and why people are anonymous because they're cowards. It's not because they're cowards. It's because they don't want to face the same consequences as this guy. Because it's getting worse online with that sort of thing. Harassment and criticism are being conflated together all the time. Anita Sarkeesian started that when she went to the UN, trying to get criticism to be made into harassment because she said to the UN that sometimes harassment is that which is illegal and legal. This is what we're seeing on the internet, and then people wonder why people don't want their real names or their livelihoods being disclosed on the internet.
There's a nice quote in the chat from Nekoman. The road to power is filled with hypocrisy and casualty.
Yeah, It's it's definitely I can see issues on both sides of the debate because when you take a step back and you look at both sides, you can kind of see there are people on both sides of the debate that are just as bad as each other. We
Oh
can't
yeah, of course.
yeah we can't just say it's black and white and one side is good and one side is bad because that's never going to happen in a group of people. But what those people did in the actual the reasonable questions to anti-social justice warriors was to generalize about all of us and say we all are like this.
Yeah, the basically collectivism fallacy. They used it in the entire video.
Yeah, and I'm going to respond to it because they actually did two live streams where they responded to the responses they got for that video, and the lack of self awareness in that
Yeah,
hangout is just unbelievable.
I would also recommend you watch I'm gonna find the link for you. The Philip Moriarty, um, it's a video he did. Because he takes a few I think he takes a few people out of context, or at least I have seen like 50 minutes of it or something like that. But I think I mean those are people he is actually willing to have a discussion, which he has his comments on for once.
Yeah,
And I mean those are the people I would actually like to actually have a debate with. um
exactly.
I
I,
mean,
I think I think that's why I'm disappointed in Thunderfoot because he could have opened a dialogue and he could have taken Philip Moriarty's arguments that he's showing and shown them to be in error. Because I don't agree with what Philip Moriarty is saying in most of what he's saying, but I just want the opportunity for his views to be aired and for somebody on the opposite side of the debate to give really good arguments to why what he's saying is wrong, and that could have been a good thing for Thunderfoot to do, to address some of his critics and show why what they say sometimes is complete and utter bullshit.
yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, the whole canon thing on our side is horrific. We have atheism is unstoppable, who is a fucking idiot who censors his chat. I mean, the thing, the 20 minutes of the one podcast where just banned people and shat on his co-hosts. uh, uh, he's just as light skinned as the social justice warriors, and doxes people. I mean, and he's supposed to be a so-called skeptic. But also on the other side, there are very horrible people that have destroyed people. I mean, Zoe Quinn. Jesus Christ, that woman is a horrible person. There are
You've got Randy Harper. Randy Harper's an awful person.
yeah. There and I've seen now that lately from the people who have opposed Gamergate, Devin Farisi or Faras, whatever his name is, stepped down when he made fun of Trump, and then he did was accused of doing the same thing himself, and then now a anti Gamergate or a so-called social justice warrior, journalist who has been now charged with 5 rapes.
Yeah, I
Uh,
saw that.
and I mean, they're just as horrible, if not worse, on the other side. They are they're committing crime, and we have the Ralph retort, who did something retarded as well. So I mean, using this collective shit on people, and the so-called skeptic. I mean, I'm in one of the so-called Gamergate groups, and I posted a meme on where someone I had a screenshot with Lazy Green and on Pornhub, and she gets fisted. Watch this feminist get fisted or something like that. And there's this one guy who said like, you can't post this stuff, it makes us look bad. No, it fucking doesn't. It only makes me look bad potentially, because I'm responsible for what I post in groups or wherever. How the fuck does my actions affect anyone? That's the whole thing with Gamergate. Everyone was supposedly responsible for their own actions, and even there was very small minority of so-called trolls going after people very hard. But how can you be responsible for someone else's actions? I mean, even feminists aren't responsible for other feminists' actions, to be honest.
No.
So I don't get this fallacy that for something I post supposedly makes someone else look bad. That's the definition of a retardation.
Yeah. I think getting back to the reasonable questions video, I loved that bit from is it H Bomber guy when he said when he faked talking to Anita Sarkeesian saying, "Oh, that they think we're trying to take their video games away from them," and then I thought you actually did in Australia. You did. You got Grand Theft Auto taken off the shelves, even though it's age restricted. You still got it taken off the shelves, so nobody could buy it. So yeah, you did take video games away from people.
Yeah, and you had Dead or Alive Extreme, beach volleyball. You had Fire Emblem Fire. Oh god damn it! I don't play that series, but that got censored and so-called localized. There are games that are getting affected, and I mean, Baldur's Gate that is just pushing. Politics and removing the original game. There is I don't know where these people get this stuff from, because uh, this stuff is happening and they're denying it.
I don't
Uh,
I don't think people like Philip Moriarty know exactly what we're fighting against. I think he's just bought into the hype of these people calling us haters and misogynists and that sort of thing, but he's not really researched into why we're opposing this so-called social justice that they want to push, because they do infect everything that they touch. I mean, they infected atheism. They got into games, they infected that. They went to humanism and they started to divide that up into little boxes and sections that people should be put into. Humanists, which is a word that really encompasses everybody. That's a broad spectrum word that really is designed to bring everybody together. They got into it and decided to split everybody up. And that's exactly what they do. They divide people up into everything they get themselves into, whether it's atheism. We had Atheism Plus, which divided atheists. We had and like I said, they're very divisive in society. They don't want people to come together and solve their issues. They just want to give people special treatment and say, no, these people are special. Let's hold them up above everybody else. And that's what equality is when it's not.
yeah, that from the H bomber guy is totally behind Norwegian term. Uh, it's ridiculous. And you also had the other which was quite interesting. Two of his questions, which I remember quite fondly. One of them is when people like have a discussion and then shit post at the same time. That's not a uh, that's not a defense. You can't defend that when you shit post and you can debate someone, which is basically what people do on YouTube by mocking someone and debunking them at the same time. I mean,
Yeah.
Bering does this. Uh,
Pwnage videos
yeah,
contain both
basically.
humor and factual information. You just have to be intelligent enough to cipher it out and take it in.
Yeah, and he doesn't get that. And then the beginning of this response video, he doesn't get that either. And uh, which is also interesting. All these people, which are in the regressive left part, um, all are against anonymity. I mean, the that Adam Roll, I don't remember his name, that Australian guy with the
Oh yeah.
porn mustache, which said,
You mean fake Burt Reynolds?
yeah, well, he said, "Why are you hiding behind your avatars and anonymity?" And forgets that two people in the same video do the same thing. And Philip Moriarty did this in the response video, saying, "Well, people are shouting abuse, a vague term again, behind an avatar, and it would be much better if they came forward and uh, used their real name." But
Well, this is
again,
this is the same argument that Devon Tracy used for people not being anonymous on the internet. He's saying you should put your name to your argument. They're basically saying that if you put your name to your argument, it somehow changes the strength of your argument, which it doesn't. You know, an argument is based on its own merit and its own strength. It doesn't matter if I show my face or tell you my name. It doesn't change the validity of the argument.
exactly. And and why would anyone actually reveal their identity when these people are going after their jobs, like we mentioned earlier?
Yeah, exactly. But like I said, I don't think he's done his research into actually why people are anonymous and why they choose to be anonymous. Another thing as well, and I've got to say this: a lot of these social justice warriors and radical feminists, they immediately assume that everybody that is hurling abuse at them is on the opposite side of the debate. There are third-party trolls that step in and take advantage of these heated flame wars, and they get in and they do it just to inflame the situation. That's what they do. And it's having the ability to acknowledge that when somebody is not really on the opposite side of the debate and they're actually just a third party troll, just getting their weekend lols, just trolling people. It's like they just have this inability to see this is what's going on. But again, having all this hate and abuse from probably third party trolls is playing into their victim narrative. It's giving them credibility into saying, look at what we get.
Yeah, yeah, it's also very prominent, this victim mentality. I honestly don't know if this Moriarty guy is doing this out of malice or out of ignorance, but at least he's willing to have a conversation. I mean, but there are all others who are incredibly disingenuous.
I wonder,
Um,
he's made a few videos about Sargon, and he hasn't sent. I don't. As far as I know, he's not made any videos requesting a debate with Sargon, because I know for certain that if Sargon got an offer like that, he would accept it, because that's how Sargon is. He likes debate. He likes to air opinions in public and that sort of thing. And I find it really interesting that these people haven't wanted to have an open discussion with Sargon about this.
yeah, I wouldn't know, honestly. I know Bering does videos with a few feminists. Those who actually are willing to to show up in the streams, and he's had a few. I know Other Phrase and Mr. Silhouette are actually trying to get feminists on their streams. What they have done, skeptic feminists who got really triggered when when Silhouette said feminism isn't what the actual definition is. And they also had another guy who was really pro Anita Sarkeesian, but that's beside the point. That I would actually have to commend them, even though there were, I would say, they're fucking idiots in those streams. They were actually willing to have the conversation, which is more than I can say for a lot of other people.
Yeah, and it's oh, there was somebody else I was going to mention who just completely slipped my mind for a minute. Um, yeah, Christy Winters. Sargon's debate with Christy Winters is just proof that bullshit baffles brains, because that woman is just completely full to the brim of bullshit. She's like an urban dictionary of buzzwords that the minute you say something to her, and it's just an endless stream of verbal vomit coming
Yeah.
at you from her.
Sargon didn't do that well in that, to be honest.
No, but it's kind of recognizing that, yeah, Christy Winters is full of shit, and all you have
Yeah.
to do
Oh yeah.
is just just treat her as that she's full of bullshit, and that's the way to get around her, sort of thing, because she heavily relies on the fact that she says she's an academic and
Yeah.
this sort of thing.
And it also showed in that video. Have you read this insignificant book, and what is your stance on it? What the fuck?
Yeah, exactly. It's like you can't be have an argument about feminism until you've read these books. It's like you can't have an opinion on people stealing things unless you've read a book on law. You know, it's that kind of argumentation. And he did admit it. I say that for Sargon. He did admit it. He said he was unprepared for that type of debate. I don't think he was ready for how disingenuous she was and how full of logical fallacies she liked to be.
Yeah, and the debate form was also a little bit flawed. Um, I would have also uh, he should have been more aggressive, to say the least, and prepared differently.
I think
Uh,
I think I mean it's all right for us to say this in hindsight. I mean we weren't there, but if I'm going to debate somebody, I'm going to watch their videos and see what their main arguments are, and then research any common arguments you can use to defeat those
yeah,
arguments.
yeah. I don't know if he did that. It's hard to say it right now, but I felt this is what we did on your stream against the one of the flying monkeys. I can't remember
Uh,
her name.
what was it? Carry what? Carry
Something.
yeah,
Which I already knew, and you already knew her arguments
yeah.
that were coming, and I was just poking holes in her logic. And it was obvious for anyone watching, except her.
Well,
Uh,
I actually got a lot of criticism for that hangout because people were saying you let her talk far too long, and it was like I let her speak because she was hanging herself with her own words, and
yeah,
anybody with any intelligence could see that what she was saying was bullshit.
yeah. Just 1 second.
We are still here. It's not dead air or anything. I'll.
Sorry about that. Yeah, the thing with that stream, we let her talk. That's why I was trying to poke holes in her logic and ask her things, and let her just hang herself.
I think the
uh
most amazing thing that she said was when I asked her, I said, "Well, what gives you the authority to do this and to dox people?" And she said, "Because we're the good guys."
yeah. Yeah, so that's I've become better at debating people after I've had a few feminists on my previous stream. So it takes some practice, but you can actually do that if you know what they're gonna say, and just little by little. It's like the frog and boiling thing. If you throw a frog in a boiling water, he jumps out. But if slowly he heats up, the frog won't notice. Basically, that's what I try to make an approach when I do debates.
Yeah, exactly, and it's the best way to do it because that's what helps the conversation along as well. And the bit where she said in the hangout that you could go online and you could find out people's credit card information and that sort of thing. And it's like, how? Because if you could do that, then everybody's personal information would be in jeopardy. And then she said, because you can find it through hackers. I said, oh, so you have to get it through illegal means then. And it's those little trip ups and those little things that if you let people talk and let them paint themselves into a corner, that they just can't get out of it. And from that point on, her argument just got more and more ridiculous.
Yeah, it's even though I don't I like Milo a lot. He has a very good quote on this, saying sunlight is the best disinfectant to these people.
Exactly. And like I was saying before, I'm not a massive Trump fan or anything like that. I mean, a lot of what he said is just like, holy shit, what are you saying? And then you look at Hillary Clinton, and then you just think, Jesus Christ, you got. You know what? I feel sorry for Americans because they've got to choose between two people, who I wouldn't want to choose between, because it stands out to me that the shit that could happen if either of them get in control is going.
Yeah,
I know you don't particularly want to talk about this sort of subject, but I'm like, I've tried to stay out of it up until this point because I don't really have an opinion on it. I don't know enough about American politics to say either way. But from what I've heard about Hillary, Jesus Christ, if they choose Hillary, I think the world is fucked.
yeah. Like I totally agree with you. I'm not gonna talk a lot. I would have to probably do a stream on its own just on that topic. But it's like choosing like cancer or AIDS for United States right now. But I would actually personally choose Trump between them, because I think Hillary is such a liar, hypocrite, and all these type of things.
Yeah.
But
Well, the thing is, when you look at Hillary, what she's done is that she's committed treason. She's committed
yeah,
treason against her own country.
yep. Back to the reasonable things or questions, which one of the Moriarty questions was the academic thing, having unpopular opinions in academia in the UK, which kind of goes your way because you live in the UK, and it's under law in from 1980 something that you should be able to air unpopular opinions.
Yeah, but there's also within that's covered within that law is the ability to be able to challenge those controversial opinions, because that's what free speech is all about. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't have peer review. So you're quite welcome to put forward controversial opinions, but if they don't stand up to scrutiny, then they're not gonna stand up, are they? They're gonna be thrown out, and that's what a lot of these social sciences don't get. That the bullshit they're saying isn't backed up with evidence, so it wouldn't stand peer review.
Yeah, but the irony of actually that statement is that academia is actually trying to, or feminism in academia is trying to silence unpopular, the so-called unpopular opinion right now.
Yeah,
I mean, we see this in the States. We see this in a few universities in the UK. I mean, Goldsmith, I think, was pretty bad with the whole diversity thing, where white males weren't allowed in few meetings and stuff like that.
yeah.
And Tim Hunt, what was that his name? It was basically uh, because he made a joke about women or something, a very very light joke. Feminists flipped their script, and he left UK, I think, and I don't know where he moved to, but wasn't he a Nobel laureate or something?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he was forced out of his job, and just for a one-off comment that was obviously a joke, and the university actually just sacked him, and yeah, he left. I think he left the UK because I think he said that he was just disillusioned at the fact that certain speech is not being taught, and universities are heading down the authoritarian route where speech is limited, which is not what universities are about. Universities are about education and learning the truth, not oppressing it, which is what's happening. I mean, Canada, in my opinion, Canada is probably the worst place if you want to talk about feminism, because their college campuses and stuff are just horrific. I made several videos, places in Canada where men were just going to talk about male suicide and male issues and mental health issues, and they blocked the event because they thought it was a men's rights movement that was promoting hatred towards women, when they weren't even talking about women. They were talking about suicide and mental health issues, which is something that's stigmatized when men talk about it. And it's this authoritarian mentality where they automatically assume that everything is about them. And, there can't be a men's rights movement. How dare men talk about their issues when our issues are more important than theirs? And yet they say they're about equality. It's bullshit. Every time I hear that bullshit phrase that, oh, feminism cares about male and female equality, and it's like, well, when the hell are you going to talk about it then? And they never do. They never ever do. And that's the reason we have the men's rights movement, is because it's not talked about. It's because there aren't shelters for men who suffer from domestic abuse. Which, by the way, if you look at it, I don't know what it's like in your country, but definitely in the UK and in Canada, that 50% of people, sorry, yeah, 50% of the people that suffer domestic violence are men. And yet it's a silent statistic that nobody seems to talk about.
Yeah, it's really bad. And the thing with again, morality here is completely missing the point of what he's actually saying, because um it doesn't go to his camp, because, or it doesn't apply for his camp, because it's actually the so-called alt right, or whatever, these white supremacists, or whatever these people call these unpopular opinions these days, are the ones that are getting silenced. And I just watched a video, I think it was Tyler Preston, where there was some Black Lives Matter activists. I don't know if I think it might have been UK. I might have been wrong. Uh, where they said science is sexist or some shit like that, or racist,
Oh,
and
Jesus Christ.
they wanted to remove it. So
The thing is, that what I want to know is why is there a Black Lives Matter movement in the UK? We have the lowest um, gun crime at all. It's very rare we get a shooting here in the UK, let alone a black person being shot or killed by the police or anything like that. And as far as I'm concerned, they have equal rights in this country. So why are they going to countries where there's quite obviously not a problem?
yeah, because I also watched other Tyler Preston videos where Black Lives Matter was in Finland, and they were actually in my country, Norway, and Denmark as well. And I watched the protest, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? I didn't actually know they had a protest. There were like 500 people there, but it was really pathetic, to say the least. And there were no headlines anywhere in the papers. I mean, last year, I believe, there were two shots fired in Norway, and no one was killed by police.
Yeah,
They missed, basically.
I think the UK's police force is so heavily regulated with gun crime that every time they fire a shot, they have to file a report, and there's a committee to discuss why shots were fired, and that's just because shots were fired, not because anybody was killed or anything. They have to justify every single action they take in order when they fire a weapon. So I don't understand why they would be protesting in a country that has such heavy regulation against guns anyway.
Yeah. So saying, I don't even know why this would be a thing even in Scandinavia. I mean, Sweden is insane, but Denmark and Norway are pretty much. There is so little crime that I can't understand why there would even be some or any protest with Black Lives Matter, because there is literally uh, no crime here. There are no people getting killed by police. Literally, no one is getting killed by police, and these people
I
still
think
show up.
I think what it is, I think it's the victimhood Olympics, isn't it? It's just, oh God, they're doing it in America, that they can't be as oppressed as we are. We need to protest.
I
It's that sort of mentality.
Yeah, and they're even worse, where where you were, where they blocked planes from coming in, and people going uh or refusing people to catch their flights.
If that if that
um
had been if that had been anybody else, there would have been riot vans turn up. They would have been dragged off and arrested, instantly. And this is what we're talking about, though. It's the media and the authorities' fear of being perceived as being racist when dealing with Black Lives Matter and that sort of thing. I mean, even in the UK here, we've had issues with police not dealing with criminal acts because they fear of being called racist. I don't know if you know about it, but the whole Rotherham situation where there was this massive Asian paedophile gang. When I'm saying Asian, I'm not talking China or anything like that. I'm talking about uh, people of probably Pakistani origin or Indian origin, Afghan origin, that sort of thing. And the police knew about it for 10 years and did nothing while these group of girls were repeatedly raped and passed around this paedophile ring. And when the parents actually went to go and rescue their girls from this ring, the police arrested them. And this all came out in the wash because it all got blown out. Somebody blew the whistle on them, and they stated, even the social workers who were involved in the cases said they were fearful of speaking out because they didn't want to be called racist. And this is where it's gone too far with things. Yeah, fair enough, racism does exist, but you can't not call people out on their actions just because they're of a different skin color, because that's racism too.
Yeah, like I'm doing a few courses in university, and last year in autumn I had a course in well, I can't remember, leadership and organizations, basically. And for no reason at all, this female, I'm pretty sure she is a feminist, because she blatantly stated that all masculinity was evil. And I'm like, what the fuck? What does this have to do with the course?
Yeah, but you see, they're not bigots, are they? That's not bigoted to say that thing. Just to generalize half the population of the planet. That's not bigotry. Fucking, sometimes I wonder how these people get out of bed and actually look after themselves and survive, because the lack of self-awareness and common sense says to me that they should really just lay down, curl up, and die somewhere because they don't have the ability to function in society.
Yeah, and we had like three lectures where she was basically just spewing that feminine traits were good and masculine traits were evil, and I was jokingly saying to the other people I was sitting next to, I'm like, what the fuck? Does she really hate men? Or are all men like evil? Because it was so freaking stupid. But I wanted to pass the course, so I didn't actually object to this. But is freaking stupid.
Yeah, and it's just getting worse in universities and colleges. There are a few universities that are actually taking a stance now and basically telling these people that no, you can't have safe spaces. You need to learn to take the criticism and be adults and learn that, in life, you are going to get criticized for things that you say, and you just have to deal with it. They fucking say, like, getting back to the reasonable questions video, that they said, oh, you're getting so triggered by the fact that, we talk about trigger warnings and safe spaces. Yes, because they're bullshit. Adults don't need safe spaces. Adults don't need trigger warnings. It's like, fuck me. Don't they realize this?
I don't know. I mean, Germany and Sweden are pretty bad right now. I haven't actually been in Germany for a few years, but I was I usually hung around younger people, and they were getting pretty fed up with this white guilt, because in German society, the whole guilt after the Second World War is pretty heavy, at least for Germans. So they're like trying to make everything right again,
And
and I think the I mean, Germany was basically guilted into participating in the war in the Middle East, and then helping Greece. And then the second time they needed help, I think people are just, at least the people I talked to, were getting really fed up with that Germans need to help everyone in the world because someone else did in the past, which they had nothing to do with, um, and they were responsible for. And it shows now with the migrant thing, but that people are getting really fed up, and that's the danger with this, is that people are just gonna vote for extreme right people. Uh,
Well,
Now they might.
I was just going to bring that up because basically this is the EU's own fault because they wanted to expand so quickly because they wanted to rival the United States that they didn't take into consideration that certain countries' economies weren't strong enough to join the union, but that they just wavered that around and thought, no, we'll just invite them in and to become part of the European Union, and that just put the member states that were already in it under more stress because you're having to prop up economies of countries that can't handle being in the EU, and that's what happened in Greece. It's what's happening in Portugal. It's now what's happening in Spain. We're seeing large amounts of unemployment, and their national debt is growing, and the EU is and countries in the EU are constantly having to bail out these countries, and it's never going to stop because the EU won't admit that the EU is a complete failure, and it needs to just disband and allow countries to recover. But they'll never do it because they're so committed in going forward with this United States of Europe and stuff. It's just going to be their own collapse. It's just going to collapse into a big pile of shit eventually.
I think like a lot of things, the original idea was pretty novel, where it was basically a trade between steel and mining companies, I think.
Yeah,
And then it has just devolved into nations and all that kind of crap. I mean, Norway isn't part of the EU because there's literally no benefits to Norwegian economy to join the EU. Norway is pretty rich from the oil, but it's a small country, and it would destroy the fishing industry, the farmers, because it's pretty hard to grow stuff here because it's far north and a lot of mountains and stuff like that. So it would destroy the farming here, and and the open borders. I mean, Norwegians wouldn't be able to handle everything because it's such a small country. I mean, just look at Sweden. Sweden is
yeah.
pretty much fucked.
And people say that this immigration isn't doing anything. Yes, it is. You've got to look at France and Calais and that little town and see what's happened there, just to see what's happening. They're sick of it, and it's been lumped onto England's doorstep again with these refugee children that we're now having to take in, which we are doing now. 3,000 refugee children that were not our problem because they went to France. France let them in. So, as far as I'm concerned, it's France's problem. Why should we have to deal with somebody else's problem again? We've got issues of our own, as I'm sure Norway has, that we need to look after our own people and make sure they're cared for and are okay. I mean, we've got kids on the street in the UK that aren't getting the opportunities that these refugee kids are going to get. Where's the money for those children that are on the streets in cold, damp conditions? This is what we should be saying to our politicians. Where this money suddenly materializes from out of nowhere, and yet it was never available for our own people. It's that kind of stuff that makes the country resent these refugees, and why people voted to Brexit when they did, because we do want more control over our borders. I don't want to be dictated to by another country how many people can come into this country because we've seen our wages go down because of the large amounts of immigration. and that sort of thing. We've got food banks in operation because workers can't afford to put food on the table for their families. And yet, no, let's take some more people in. Just keep them coming in because we can cope. We've got a housing situation problem here in the UK. There's like a 2 to 3 year waiting list for council housing here in the UK, and yet these refugees that they're going to grow up. Where are they going to be housed? This is what people don't look at. It's not just now. It's when these people get older, they're going to need housing. They're going to need jobs. And they just don't look at that. They just think it's an endless stream that we can take into this country.
Yeah, I mean Norway has it pretty good because Norway is pretty rich, and there are like 5 million people here, and even those without work get pretty good benefits. But the issue is it's contained right now, and even though it's very good here, I mean we have problems with child services and stuff like that. Even though there Norway is a pretty wealthy country, well, there are still issues, and fortunately, the rules for coming in here are pretty seeking asylum is pretty strict with migrants. I'm actually for that. If people are being persecuted, they should absolutely be able to stay here. If they risk getting killed, they should be able to stay here. But if they are lying and stuff like that and committing crimes, send them back because they have nothing to do and they don't want to integrate. Now,
I don't know if you saw it. Did you see the video of when the migrants were first coming to Europe when Merkel opened the floodgates and basically just said, "Yeah, you're welcome here," sort of thing,
no,
and then everybody opened their floodgates. There was actually the press was actually videoing them coming in through the gates and then ditching their passports as they came in because a lot of them weren't from Syria. A lot of them were economic migrants just
yeah,
taking advantage of the situation. And the people at the jungle that's in Cali now. How do you know which ones are refugees and which ones are just economic migrants just taking advantage? This is why there need to be proper camps set up that can process these people and separate out the refugees from the economic migrants, and that's the way forward. This should have been done in the first place, but it wasn't. And now we see this complete mass of people across Europe that are displaced, causing trouble. I mean, there are no-go areas in certain countries now, Belgium and places like that, where people just can't go because of these migrants. They're mugging people. I mean, I've got friends in Germany, and they say after a certain time of night, certain areas, you don't go out because there's chances you're going to be mugged, raped, even in your own home. There've been cases where elderly people in Germany have been raided in their own home and been beaten up by migrants. And then people say, well, why isn't Britain taking these people in? Do we need to say any more? We can see the news.
yeah. I mean, even though there isn't a lot of I mean murder isn't really that prevalent, but there's still crime here, and rape last year. I mean there are Norwegians are ethnically around 90% of the population, and then you have the minorities around 10%, and they were represented in over 30%, around 30% of rapes were by immigrants, um, and or foreigners. And then you had it was kind of unclear if the Norwegian citizens, which could also be with minority backgrounds, were committing rape and as well. And then you have also criminal stuff, which they're also overrepresented in, and 50% of at least the Muslims don't have work here.
Do you know of somebody called Lauren Southern?
Yeah, I saw that
Because
thing with when she was in the jungle, where she asked people where they were from, and I think two
yeah,
people were from Syria. The rest of them were from Pakistan or
there's actually
whatever.
there's actually another video of her walking around Belgium, and she's walking around with the camera, and you've got Muslim youths coming up to her and saying, "Don't film us here." And I think it's from an area where it was where the Paris bombers came from. It's extremist hotspot where she was, and they were basically saying, "Don't film us," and things like that. And then Lauren Southern security stepped in and says, "We need to go now," because it was getting too dangerous. And this is what's happening. Belgium, of all places, where you can't walk around and do things that you want to do as a free individual. And
Yeah, and you also had uh, there are many people who haven't seen this, but he actually got interviewed by Dave Rubin. He's basically an economist, and he's not even anti-migration or anything. He just looks at the economic side of things and says the current things Sweden are doing things in is unsustainable. And he was doing an interview with like our BBC here in a place called Little Mogadishu in Sweden, and they were basically threatened, and they had to leave to go to somewhere place where there were migrants, and I can't understand how that is even possible. And then you also had some Australian reporters who went to the same place, and the camera guy got run over by these migrants. Uh,
I mean, saying that, we have places in the UK where you can't go because of Muslims. I mean, there are places in Birmingham. There's a place called Star City. It's like a shopping mall type of precinct, and the area surrounding it. And my girlfriend, she used to go there a lot. She used to go and watch movies there with a friend. And this one particular night, they were going down there, and a gang of Asian youths followed them, and they were making sexual remarks towards them, and that sort of thing. And basically they told them, they turned around and told them to piss off, because stop following us, and that sort of thing. And they made the gun sign to them, and later they were following them around in a car. And that's happening in the UK. There's a place in the UK called Burnley, and people have been up there to try and film. So I think Lauren Southern went up there, actually, tried to film, and within minutes they were on their phones, and they were out in the streets, and they were watching Lauren Southern, and they were actively saying, you can't be around here. This is a Muslim area, and this is denied in the press. This isn't covered anywhere. And anybody who says that, oh, Muslims are taking over certain areas, they're put down as conspiracy theorists when there's factual evidence to prove it.
yeah, and um, this kind of stuff doesn't actually get covered in Europe. I mean, Germany, they had the cover up of the New Year's Eve thing, which is despicable. And because I actually can speak German, I tried to watch like interviews of people, because it wasn't really just in Cologne. It was in Hamburg, it was in Stuttgart, it was in Munich, I think. It was several places. So it seemed like it was some sort of organized, at least in those areas where they just came together and did this. And there was a bouncer during those events in Hamburg who said he had never seen anything like this, because there were women coming over to him, trying to get him to defend them, because they were groping and touching women in inappropriate ways during the New Year celebration. I'm disgusted the way these people. These are actually the sexists, the misogynists, the feminists speak of, and there's radio fucking silence when something like this happens.
Well, they can't admit that people were right. The people who they've labelled as racists and Islamophobes and xenophobes, they can't publicly come out and now say that those people were right about what was going to happen, because they were. like you said, Sweden's a shithole. The UK, certain parts of the UK is a shithole. That Bradford, definitely Birmingham, certain parts of Birmingham and London, they're shitholes. And you know, it's all down to this increased immigration. But oh no, multiculturalism only works when the people want to integrate with the host society. There's nothing wrong with multiculturalism, so long as I mean a good case of multiculturalism where it's actually succeeded would be the East Indies. You know, the Africans that came over to England and integrated into society. You know, but
Yeah.
Muslims don't do that. Muslims don't integrate. They form these Muslim ghettos, communities, and they refuse to integrate with a native society because they see it as evil because of their religious belief. And people just don't get that.
Yeah, and there was also I saw a Swedish airline. I can't remember the paper, but it's in Swedish, so I doubt that anyone watching this would actually be able to read it. As I said, we don't have really articles or anything to speak of. We're just it's talking off the cuff here. But it said that basically these Muslims they can't rape because they don't know any better. But white Swedish men they rape and they know what they're doing. Basically, that's the TLDR of this thing.
So
Uh,
basically, it's racism of diminished responsibility, isn't it? It's oh they can't help it because they're this particular.
Yeah, and the minority, and it was also during a festival. I think it was like a month ago or something, where there were several rapes, but they refused to like give out the if they were actually immigrants, which actually came out it was, but they were actually trying to blame this on like Swedish ethnic white men. So and I also saw the fire department trying to force inclusivity and diversity amongst their ranks, which made no fucking sense because they lowered the standards for becoming a fireman. And this pay I don't know if it's a paper or if it's just a channel, but they took four random people. They had one a little bit athletic guy and an athletic woman, and the rest were like normal people. And they didn't manage. They managed the new requirements, but the old requirements they had no chance of actually completing them. Even though the fit woman wasn't able to do the old requirements,
You see,
and
feminists would call that inequality. That's not inequality. That's just fact in biology that women who train to the exact same standard as men are weaker than men. It's a biological fact.
yeah, but the thing is, if you're going to inside a burning building, apartment or a house, you have to be sure that the people you're sending in are actually going to be able to save themselves and the people they're trying to rescue.
Exactly. I mean, I wouldn't want to be next to somebody that had a limitation in their strength that I was relying on to keep me safe.
Yeah. I don't know even what the thing and the chief in this they actually fired men and it didn't renew the contract and stuff like that, even though they were overqualified. Basically, there was this one guy who had been like with the fire department for 5 years, but he wanted to have a full time and applied for that job, but someone who was an accountant or someone who was female got the job because she fulfilled the quota they were trying to get, which makes no sense.
And of course, there's the recent video that Sargon did about the BBC, where they're actively
Yeah, Jesus
they're actually
Christ.
sacking white people now to fill their diversity quotas.
I hope there are lawsuits because Yahoo did the same thing just recently, and there's a lawsuit going on right now where they fired. There were like the editors, the editor in chief or something like that. There were 20% females and 80% men, and over 18 months they switched around, and she wanted the CEO of Yahoo just forced it down their throats that just fired men, so she could force this diversity quota in her own head for some reason, and now they're getting sued. It doesn't make any sense. What happened to the meritocracy, where the best person for the job?
Well, that goes out the window with modern feminism. And you know what? These people have got really good cases for discrimination, for unfair dismissal. And like I said, I really hope that we start to see some lawsuits come out about this, because that's the only thing that's going to turn this around. When they start to make a loss of money, that you got to hit these people in the pockets. You can't argue with them ideologically about things. It's got to be about money. And the minute the profit starts to go down because of these rules that they've implemented, that's when you're going to see the change.
Yeah, but I mean, even Twitter is losing money, and they're not changing shit. Facebook has also been losing money, as far as I'm aware, in their stock, and they're censoring stuff. I don't know about YouTube how well they're doing, but they're not doing well by censoring topics.
They're going to be like the architects of their own demise, really, aren't they? These rules and stuff. Because I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. I can't understand the way the world is going. That these people just don't understand that what they're doing, that this discriminating people for their sex and their race, is exactly the reason why they've implemented these rules, to try and stop this. And you cannot fight sexism, racism by being sexist and racist. And
Yeah, and it also creates this Streisand effect. I mean, Germany is seeing this right now, where Merkel, her party, just lost control of Berlin because of all her bad policies, which people are getting fed up with. Um, people are just scared of just going outside because of these migrants. I mean, last year had 25% of the migrants that came in were convicted of something.
yeah,
That's astounding.
and then you'll get people on YouTube. You'll get these social justice warriors who get on camera and they're saying xenophobes, and all this kind of shit. They just shout out the buzzwords, and they describe why they think people are xenophobes, and don't really look into the situation itself. They say, well, you just don't like people coming into your country. I've got no problems with that. I'm just against people that come to my country and then start doing shitloads of crime, and then you don't want to integrate, and then try and force their philosophy, their belief system onto me. I've got a huge problem with that. And they're totally misrepresenting the reasons why we're fighting against this.
Yeah, it's a bad direction right now, because also going to the other side, like the right extreme, it's not much better.
No,
Um,
and
uh,
and then we get this old chestnut, because what the right is saying is kind of agreeing with what we're saying, or we're agreeing with what the right is saying. Then that automatically makes everybody the right. These people. I've said this before. These people are on so far to the extreme left that anybody that appears to be disagreeing with them is the right. And that's a point I was going to bring up in my response to this reasonable things video, is when Tim's talking about people complaining about his question about people standing up for the right and that sort of thing. The reason they're pissed off is because they're being mislabeled as right when they're not. They're just left people. They're just liberals that are disagreeing with you.
yeah.
It's that's why people got angry. that you're just generalizing everybody that disagrees with you as the right, even though you're not looking into the reasons why they're disagreeing with you.
Yeah, anyone criticizing these people are basically alt right,
Yeah,
or to the right for compared to these people. I mean, I don't really like Milo, as I said earlier. I said this on multiple occasions. Um, I even have the small unpopular opinion that I think what actually he did from the actual reason saw. God damn it, my phone is ringing. Um, well, the reason they gave was he was actually slandering uh, Leslie Jones, but uh, I think it was taken a little bit too far by banning him completely from the platform. But people are going to people like Milo, even though I think he's wrong on a lot of subjects, and they're going to him because he is saying some stuff that are making sense
exactly.
right now, at least.
This is a reason why many people are supporting Trump. It's not because they necessarily agree with what he's saying. It's because he's the only alternative to what's being offered. It's exactly the same thing. And people just don't get that. The only reason people are actually agreeing with Milo is because the subject he's talking about, he's correct on that. You can agree with somebody and disagree with them on 99% of everything else they say, and that in no way makes you the alt right or anything like that.
Yeah, and that's what's gonna happen is people are gonna look to the right, even though they're not a much better alternative, and
Yeah.
they're gonna accept what they're spewing, even though it's better what the left is spewing.
It's I don't know. So what else do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about the Putin situation and we're on the brink of World War III and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, sure. We could talk a little bit about that. We've been talking for over an hour, so I
Yeah.
don't want to exhaust or everything we can talk about ever. We can talk a little bit about that and then kind of finish the stream because I think we've had a pretty good discussion, to be honest.
Yeah, it's been great. Enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So, as a person coming from Europe, I'm talking about mainland Europe. Obviously, I'm from Europe too, but you talking from mainland Europe. And you're a lot closer to Russia than I am in that respect. What's your take on this whole situation that's brewing in Syria and between the West and Russia?
I'm not really sure. I mean, we already have the Ukraine situation, which is really volatile. So, uh, I don't really know because Russia right now. I mean, they basically have a dictatorship over there. I mean, they are also oppressing gay people. They can't show affection in public. They're jailing opponents to the government, and yeah, and there are like videos all over the place. Like there is Russian mafia basically doing they have their own rules, at least when it comes to when they drive. They just drive, and if someone gets in the way, you might risk getting shot. And I can't imagine what they are doing in when they're not being filmed.
So,
So
do you think we're actually at risk of World War III? Do you think there's a really big risk that this is going to happen?
Um, it's hard to say at this point. I mean, there could be a big war, but I don't know if there's gonna be a World War III, because I think things need to escalate to for this to actually happen.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
mean,
I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube lately, kind of in a way scaremongering people. I mean, I watched V's video on this, and I thought it was a little bit scaremongery that what he was saying, because I've got to assume that these world leaders know that nobody can win a nuclear war. No matter how batshit crazy they are, they must know that they can't win it. And when I see people saying that we've got these weapons to safeguard our people, then it's bullshit. Because if you attack another country with nuclear weapons, you've already signed the death warrant of your people. Because even if the other side doesn't retaliate, you're going to inherit a poisoned world, a scorched earth, and it's like the old film that in from the 80s, War Games. The only way to win a nuclear war is not to play the game.
Yeah.
And I hope our leaders have the common sense to know that if they push it, then that they're going to be the ones that end life on this planet. They're going to our culture, our everything is going to end with them, and they're going to be the instigators of it. They will have become the destroyers of worlds.
Yeah, I think it's a really volatile situation, and Russia going into Ukraine doesn't help things at all, to be honest.
Yeah, I think NATO needs to take a good hard look at itself as well, and maybe say, we need to stop provoking things. Because although I don't agree with what Russia does, I mean, they're just as guilty as anybody else, some of the
Oh
shit that
yeah,
they do for being provocative and stuff like that. I don't think the EU interfering in the Ukraine situation, even though it was a corrupt government, and I agree with this, even though it was a corrupt government, they shouldn't have interfered and tried to overthrow it, because that's going against everything that we stand for.
yeah,
Yeah,
but it's also the political thing because U.S. invaded Afghanistan and Iraq, and Iraq with no reason at all.
exactly,
And then you have then Russia has put a political credit that they can use against US because the credibility with the US has been lost because they want to play world police all the time, and therefore they did this in Crimea and said, hey, they wanted to be with us, and then US says, hey, you rigged the elections and stuff like that, and they can just say, hey, you invaded two countries, shut the fuck up.
exactly. Both sides have got things in their past that they can't really judge other people in a moral stance, because I mean, like you said, the Iraq war was completely and utterly about oil. It had nothing to do with liberating people from a tyrant and the regime. They
Yeah,
just wanted their hands on the oil. Because why was that? We have to look at the situation. What did Saddam Hussein do that provoked the US into invading him? It wasn't terrorism. It was the fact that he said he was going to start trading barrels of oil in euros rather than the dollar, and that would have completely hurt the US economy. So they had to go in and stop him and take control of his oil. They
yeah,
had to do it. And anybody who says any differently is kidding themselves. It was not about the people that were oppressed. It was totally about America looking after its own economical well-being.
yeah. And they pulled out too quickly. I don't know if it was too quickly or what else they could have done. But and they basically also created from going from Al Qaeda and Taliban, you go to ISIS, which is probably even worse, which is now taking land in Syria and Iraq and areas there.
Well,
And
that's the thing. Also, while America and Russia are doing this posturing game, ISIS is getting stronger. They're taking advantage of this situation because Russia and America refuse to cooperate and fight ISIS together.
yeah,
ISIS saying, "Yeah, we can take more land. You fight it out amongst yourselves. While you're doing that, we're just going to annex all this land for ourselves."
yeah, basically, and there are people in Europe that are gullible enough to go there. I mean, there are plenty of Norwegians. I mean, even people from UK that go down there because their recruiting tools are pretty good. They get people down there. I mean, there was an 18-year-old. I think was she was Swedish, uh, Swedish born. Like she was white and went down there and found out quickly it was not a good place to be. She was basically a sex slave, and when she tried to escape, she got shot. So, um,
There was the thing is, I've had a friend of mine go. He was in the Marines, and he went expecting to be fighting ISIS. It turned out he wasn't fighting ISIS. He was actually fighting against the Assad regime, which wasn't ISIS at all. And that's what you've got to be careful of. If you get involved with this Peshmerga um, rebels, you might not be fighting against the people you think you're fighting against.
Yeah, and the U.S. really screwed up there. I don't know if it was really a wise idea or whatever the decision was, but the EU didn't really get involved with that. And I mean, uh, we've seen in the past when you meddle too much, you fuck things up even worse. Like the U.S. with their invasions.
I think the only way forward in all of this is for them to get around the table and just say, look, the America needs to take a back seat, maybe just provide troops on the ground to help Russia fight ISIS back. Don't concern themselves with the Assad regime because although we might not agree with what's going in there, it's a sovereign nation. It has its own rules and stuff like that. And maybe the way to fight that sort of thing is through political means, not by violence or anything like that. It's a case of dealing with one situation at a time, getting rid of ISIS, letting the region calm down a bit, and just back off for a bit and just see how things go. They've got to start de-escalating and taking the back seat and stepping back, and maybe even just let Russia just do what it wants to do, and deal with the fallout from that because that sort of fallout is better than the radioactive kind, isn't it?
Yeah, but again, I think you actually did a good thing there to not get involved.
Yeah, I think it's time. I mean, I think Britain's refused to get involved in any military action. They want to pursue a more political way of ending hostilities and that sort of thing. And I think America needs to follow suit and just back off, wind its neck in a little bit, and just think, do you really want to take us to the brink of war? Because that's what's going to happen if you don't start, listening to what people are saying to you.
Yeah.
I mean, it could turn out that we're on the wrong side of history in this,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Sure.
because it's only a point of perspective that people assume that they're the good guys. The Nazis, from their perspective, thought they were the good guys, and you know this constant warmongering that the US is now trying to get involved in. Because why? Because it's good for their business. Their economy does great when they're at war.
Yeah, I mean, I
And
like to. I think the quote from Star Wars. I think episode 3, where a good is a point, point of view, basically.
yeah,
So someone who thinks they're doing good is actually the ones doing evil. So I mean, the what's the saying? Hell is paved with good intentions.
exactly. And it's. I'll be glad when the election's over in America, and the outcome's reached, and I think we'll pretty much know what's going to happen then.
Yeah,
Really,
because right now, Middle East is a fucking mess, to say the least.
in my opinion, the West just needs to pull out of the Middle East and just let them get on with it. Just let them sort themselves out, and look after our own countries because our own countries are in dire need of help. You know what?
Yeah, I think you should just ignore I mean, not ignore. I mean, you can help with or not military, like humanitarian
Humanitarian
aid,
sort of thing. Yeah,
and help that way. But just look at Europe again, Turkey, which just remove people in universities, uh, generals, all that stuff has been ignored.
yeah,
Where basically Erdogan tricked the army, and then went after the leaders in the military, and said it was a coup. When they all the when they asked the soldiers in the street, they had no idea what was going on. They were just told to because they said there was some sort of enemy going around trying to invade them, and they had no idea that they were part of the coup, basically. So uh, the censorship there. I mean, last year or 2 years ago, they took over the biggest paper and censored speech there. Facebook is, I think, banned. Google is limited. So I mean, you don't have to go far to like North Korea or something like that to see a dictatorship like that. It's
Exactly.
it's in Europe.
And these are the people that the EU wants to join the European Union. Fucking amazing.
I
You
mean,
know what? The
there's
European the
oh,
Europe
oh oh go ahead.
I think the European Union should come at this. I'm a big Star Wars and Star Trek fan, but I like Star Trek too. They should come at this from a United Federation of Planets point of view. That they have this like prime directive where they just don't get involved in cultures that are less, evolved than other cultures, and that sort of thing. And that's the way they should come at it. That yeah, let them get on with it. Let them fight it out amongst themselves. Don't supply them with weapons, modern weapons. Just let them fight it out amongst themselves, and we'll offer humanitarian aid to pick up the pieces when it's all the dust has settled and it's all resolved and stuff like that.
I
Uh,
mean, Cyprus is still occupied by Turkey. So, uh, what more can you say? I
and,
mean,
and the
they
thing is, you have people in Europe speaking out, and indeed the media speaking out against the situation in Israel with the West Bank and that sort of thing. There's a similar situation in Turkey with the Kurds, where their land is occupied by Turkey, and that they're getting systematically annihilated by the Turkish government, but goes unreported.
yeah. So we should stop trying to mess with crap we have no business doing and messing with, and actually look to home, and like Germany has enough issues right now. They should fix that crap immediately.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think I think the situation in Syria should be a UN problem. It should be UN troops in
yep,
there, and
exactly.
not any one nation dictating how another nation has to act and stuff like that. And then maybe the UN could get Russia involved in that, make it like a multinational force, like they did in Kosovo and places like that, where they cooperated together in military action rather than trying to work against each other.
Yeah. I think Merkel is gonna lose big time.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the state of the German country now, with what it is, the people aren't exactly going to vote for that again, are they?
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty clear from now the recent election of what way it's gonna swing an election. I think it's 1 year to the primary election where the where she lost Berlin, and she did not well in the regional uh, election as well. So
So the thing we don't want to see happening, because the EU refuses to listen to the people, we don't want to see the rise of the far right again, which is what's happening, like you said before. We don't want to see a far right dictator in Germany again.
yeah,
And this is the perfect excuse. This is the perfect excuse to do it as well. Because what they would do if they got in power, they would immediately demonize minorities as the evil, do the evil in their country, which in reality they are, and they would use that as an excuse to take power and have total control. And then we would see a new Third Reich. And it's not just Germany; it's Greece as well. As Sargon pointed out, there's a far right movement in Greece that's gaining ground as well, and indeed many European countries. And this is what Nigel Farage warned the EU about. He's saying, with your constant ignoring of the people and your disregard for democracy, you are going to be responsible for the rise of the far right. And they just don't, they just can't see past the nose.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we had some interesting discussion on this. We're not gonna exhaust our audience or ourselves talking around this. I think we've pretty much covered what we can, at least in this stream. We've been talking for an hour and 40 minutes, so I mean we could do this again.
Yeah,
I think.
definitely.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to mention before we close the stream off?
Not really. I think we've covered everything, haven't we? Really, we've set the world straight, haven't we?
Oh yeah. All right. Yeah. As I said, if you wanna check out Vindicator's channel, I put it in the description below. I recommend it. I watch his videos. I wouldn't shill people out, which I don't view myself. Which people that we mentioned before, like people shilling Candid, do and have done. So yeah. As always, thank you guys for watching, and see you guys next time. Bye.